Hey, what's going on with shipping? Sal Mercogliano here live. We're going to take you over to the port of Long Beach for kind of a big issue right here. There's a container collapse over in the port. Go ahead and show you. Right now, the motor vessel Mississippi that was inbound to the port of Long Beach has suffered a container collapse, uh, large container collapse. We've seen a large number of containers come off here, off the ship. So right now, this is a just finished up a live feed from WABC 7, their helicopter. They have about 30 minutes here of it, and you'll be able to see it here. So you'll notice it was a multiple stack collapse. So there was a stack, they seem to be working right here. It has collapsed partially onto this emissions boat. This is a barge that comes alongside, is connected to the stack of the MV Mississippi to catch exhaust gases. And you'll see that there is a collapse that happened both to the starboard side out into the water and toward land. But what's interesting too is the aft stack also collapsed. And now you have barges floating all over the area being herded here by boats, trying to get them close to the dock so that they don't sink out in the water. So you see boats right now pushing these containers closer to the pier so they can get them. But it looks like that's the top of the stack that has collapsed over. Same thing here. Looks like we just had an utter collapse. So this is Zim. You'll see the Zim container line here on them, where they kind of collapsed off the vessel and onto this emissions barge. So we don't have any word yet on whether or not anybody was injured or the stack collapsed to shore too, because if it collapsed one side, it may have collapsed toward shore. You can see the ship to shore crane right here in the image right there. You'll see the collapse kind of peeled off. So that looks like the close inboard stack, but it looks like there may be container right there up against the leg of the ship to shore crane. And then these containers are obviously on its side. You can see how they've collapsed over. Those are the tops of the containers there, and they've collapsed. So what typically causes stack collapses like this when you're at sea is what's called a kind of a unique motion for the ship, the parametric motion that creates a rocking motion. But this ship was pierside, obviously undergoing container operations. So probably what you had was a weight issue. Improperly weighted containers or marked containers caused some of the containers on the lower level to buckle. And once the containers begin to buckle, it's like pulling out the bottom leg of a Jenga puzzle. They begin to go. What's strange again here in this scenario is that you had it in two separate cells here, two different bays right here. This one just forward of the house, and the very aft one here. Now, we're not sure if they were working cargo at the time. They may have moved that. That's the Long Beach fireboat there that's in position. She has a lot of power to spray water and move things. So probably what you're seeing there right now is them moving some things there, being able to actually move cargo around a bit. So we're definitely seeing that happen here. So a really interesting circumstance here. Obviously, you have environmental issues, no telling what are in these containers. So what's spilling into Long Beach Harbor right now, we just don't know. A lot of this depends on where the ship was coming from. I'm going to take a second here, come over here. This is marine traffic. So this shows you the vessel in question right here. Here is the Mississippi. This is Stax 2. This is that emissions control vessel that is right there. Fireboat 15 is on location. This is the Long Beach fireboat. Rescue boat 126 also on scene here. And then over here, you can see the Cabrello, which I think is a small tug. Yep, small tug operating right there. And then you have Long Beach, looks like Harbor Patrol boats holding off, keeping everything out. Let's take a look at Mississippi here, get some details on the vessel. So she came from Yantian to Long Beach, so she would have came on the direct route. Pull up her track line here. Yep, So straight voyage across the North Pacific. Didn't go very far north. Sometimes you'll see these vessels go up actually above the Aleutians here and come back down and then straight into Long Beach. Here to the video as it's playing. So obviously, ship under contract to Zim, a lot of Zim containers on board here. I'm going to take a look at some of the questions that are coming in here. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to do this in. Looks like the F bay collapsed first, and the ship listing caused the other bay to collapse. Auto cones that don't lock like traditional cones made all these stacks come apart. So Derek S. with a little bit of information there. So these ships are connected with cones on the corners. So the corners of the containers lock into each other, and they lock into each other. Now, at the very bottom of the stacks here, closest to the main deck, you'll have lashings that cut across the vessel and secure them in place, which I am not seeing right now on board the Mississippi. I'm not seeing many container lashings right here. These lashing decks right here, these little gray areas between the containers, are there so that you can get high up on the vessel and throw lashings on board. Now, you would throw the lashings off when you're getting ready to move containers. But I guess I do have a question whether or not she has lashing straps on her, because I am not seeing any. And if you're not seeing any lashing strap, what the lashing straps do is provide that kind of crosswise linking. It'll link basically when you stack containers on top of each other. That's all you have. It's just the corners of the containers stacking each other. So imagine a Lego just stacking on top of each other. There's no cross connect. What the lashings do is provide you connections to the other kind of stacks. And I don't see them right now here on Mississippi. Man, the Fireboat is doing a great job using it's using its water cannons here. You would actually use those to spray against the side of a ship to fight fire. They are using them to basically herd. I mean, she's basically a big sheepdog herding these containers into this little bay right here. They're going to have to bring in portable cranes or maneuver cranes in to start pulling these containers up out of the water. It's going to be a difficult process to pull those containers out of the water because you're going to have to grab them. You have to physically get on the containers to lash them. Plus, you have water in those containers. And the gantry cranes are rated for a certain weight, and you'll probably max out the weight if these containers are fully flooded. Now, a lot of them aren't flooded at this point, but they will very quickly. That must be Cabrero right there with that barge. But here is the Fireboat just herding them in. This is Fireboat 15 from the Long Beach Fire Department. Again, another great use for a fireboat. These waters, you don't get these on tugboats. Using that fireboat right there to kind of herd that in. Going to go on here, look at some questions in here. Now, I don't think there's any explosion in the engine room or anything like that. This appears to be an event that happened where the containers just collapsed. Again, the strange thing in this collapse is the fact that you have multiple stacks that collapse. So note here by Derek, lashers probably started at 7 a.m. and this happened at 9 a.m. So the ship was probably, come back here a minute, sorry, lost you, was probably almost completely unlashed by then. I will give Derek this. Usually when ships come into Long Beach, they almost completely offload. In other words, nearly 100% of the containers will come off. This is one of the reasons ships are in Long Beach and LA so long. If you look at the East Coast, ships go into a port and offload maybe 20, 30% of their cargo, come into Long Beach. And again, this ship is direct from Yantian to Long Beach. She's probably going to offload 100% of her containers. So Derek may be exactly right. They may have been throwing lashings off the whole time. And so that may be why we don't see that on there. Let's see, going on here. We're going to try to read some comments here, so I apologize as we go on here. Who will have to cover the loss of these containers? Will this be individual shippers or general average? Well, general average is just so everybody knows, general average is something that the ship owner can call. And when you call general average, what that means is the losses are shared across all the cargo on board, not just the containers that fell overboard. I would envision that Mississippi and Zim, now I'm not sure who, let's see here for a second. Let's go over here to marine traffic for a minute. Pull this up. Let's see if we got an owner here on this ship. Sorry, we're doing some live research here. This is what I usually do before I ever film a video, just so you know. But since we're doing this live right now, so see, beneficial owner is Ocean Yield out of Norway. She's operated by Wilhelmsen Acronil out of Germany. And the P&I insurance is done through the United Kingdom, through the UK P&I Club. So if they do declare general average, then the expenses would be shared across all the cargo on board. And I envision that's probably what they will wind up doing because you don't want the damage to be just incurred by the containers that collapsed there. So going on here, so Robert Stanovich, from what I understand, the lashes had there. I just dropped the ship. Okay, so lashes were there, throwing off the lashings. Let's see, Brad Sillin, if using spray to move floating objects a standard technique or just a bright idea someone come up with on the fly. No, I mean this is you're using the jet propulsion there, and you can see the fireboat actually using its fire jets to push those containers into that little bay right there. So again, they're going to have to bring cranes into this area to be able to hoist them up, either portable cranes from shore or ship-based, barge-based cranes to start picking them up. What they don't want them doing is sinking out in the middle of the channel, becoming hazards to navigation. So again, innovative use for a fireboat. Not sure why we don't have fireboats in every port. They are just great. I have a big issue about not having fireboats in ports. Moving on here, maybe let's see what I got here. Sorry, I'm trying to grab every comment here as I go, so I apologize. When I was in AB, I tightened lashing turnbuckles all day during AB deck watch, also checking corner locks. Yep. Obviously, once you throw those lashings off, the only thing that's holding those containers, and man, you get a lot of movement right there, those containers. When you take those lashings off, the only thing that's holding them are those corner blocks. And if those outer containers begin to collapse and they start to move, they can start going, and then the containers can start shifting with them. Let's see, yeah, I'm not sure, Lyndon Zappa, what they did to your port. I apologize. Any injuries on the emissions boat? I have not heard any reports of injuries. I'm not listening to the live feed right now. Just before I came online, I pulled up ABC7. So I did not hear of any injuries yet. I guess I'll pull up ABC7 right now while we're sitting here and see if we can get some more news from them, see if they're pulling anything up here. So I apologize if screen gets a little wonky here as I pull up another site for you. So according to ABC7 right now, more than 50 shipping containers fall into cargo off vessel. Dozens of shipping containers fell in. According to a statement, more than 50 came off. Looking on here. Port officials said no injuries have been reported. So that's good news. So you'll see this barge right alongside here. So one of the things you'll see here is this barge alongside. This barge has this pipe that goes right into the stack. And one of the things that Long Beach has instituted is emissions capture. So the ships, when they come in, there's not shore power. You can't hook these vessels into a plug ashore. So that's a great image right there off the stern. You can see how the collapse happened. Came off that third stack from the port side and just collapsed. So these lower containers on the outboard side are the ones that collapsed, causing the stack to go. Again, they would not have even begun to touch probably those outer stacks. You're seeing a lot of clothes in here. The majority of things that the biggest items that come into Long Beach and California are manufactured goods, furniture, clothing, basically those type of items. But again, that emissions boat is taking the emissions out of the ship and scrubbing them. And because they don't have shore power ashore, you have to do that. So you can see how those containers just buckled here. These are 40-foot containers, what are known as FEUs. So you measure ships by the amount of TEUs, 20-foot equivalents they carry. So basically half these numbers. So looking at this vessel, I can't even judge what size vessel this is. Probably about a 10,000, 8,000 TEU vessel is what I would envision right here. And man, you can just see those containers just absolutely flat right here on the bottom. A lot of weight. I mean, you can put up to about 20 tons into a 40-foot container. And so you can put, several hundred tons on top of these containers. So obviously they've secured this barge. It's not going anywhere. Fortunately, it's not sinking. It's still hooked up to the vessel, which is interesting. I would imagine they would want to unhook that. But you can see the containers here off the after stack right here. Real quick, I want to look at this vessel. So, excuse me, much smaller vessel, 5,500 TEU vessel. Smaller vessels, so about 5,500 TEUs. Let me go back here to my questions. So for those of you joining us, the motor vessel Mississippi, inbound from Yantian, China, docked in Long Beach, and during cargo operations, two of the stacks of containers collapsed. The after stack collapsed, as you see right there, and then the stack just forward of the stack of the after house collapsed. So we have two stacks of the containers that have collapsed. The spillage of the containers happened onto a exhaust barge, emissions barge that was alongside, and a lot of the floating containers are being corralled right now by harbor boats in the port of Long Beach and by the Long Beach fireboat. This is Fireboat 15. They have been using their jet wash to push these containers into this bay to kind of get them out of the channel. As you can see, this is a working port. You've got a bulk vessel to the left there that's loading coal. You've got another container ship over there to the right. So they need to make sure they keep the port open here. So let me take a look at some of the questions here. I apologize, it is just me. So I'm just taking my time to go through the questions here as we go. So no injuries reported. That was a question that was asked. So a question here. So this is what happens when I'm going to say ships. What is ultimately safe? Cutting corners with laws. This is insurance, and they'll not cover it. So again, shipping is fairly safe. Although I will tell you that there was just a story in G Captain talking about how there is an estimate that about 10% of every container is basically a potential danger. So here you see shoes in the water. That looks like shoes floating in the water. That looks like a Coast Guard or port operations there trying to push those containers in. But the problem with containers is those containers are sealed at the port of basically embarkation. So warehouses will seal those containers. They'll be sealed, delivered to a container terminal, loaded on a ship. They're never opened. And what tends to happen sometimes is ships will encounter rough weather, and the inside of the container, if that's not properly blocked and braced, cargo can shift. So, what you may have is containers that are probably blocked and braced when they're loaded on board, but because of the motion of the ship, rocking maybe 15 to 30 degrees, all of a sudden that weight shifts. And now all of a sudden you have all this weight on one side and you can get a potential collapse. And that seems to be what happened here. Going on to my notes here, Voight Kempf, lashing gang probably came in at a flex start and broke down the lashings. It had 6 gangs scheduled to start today. So they were planning on working a lot on this ship. So at least 3 cranes working if you have 6 gangs there. So they were working get in. I mean, ideally, you want to throw the lashings off so that they're all done. Everything's clear so that the container cranes, the ship-to-shore cranes can do their business. Appreciate the on-site here. This is why I love my channel. I get a lot of people who are in the industry involved in this. Going on here, looking at some notes here. Are those BYDs at the bottom of the dock? Not sure. Not sure what's at the dock. Obviously, you're going to get a lot of people there who's going to be watching this. They've got to be worried about moving the rest of the containers on board. So if you've had at least 2 stacks have a collapse, that's going to make this offload of this vessel very complex going on. Is this a failure of the crane to load the containers in accordance with guidelines? Was it an automated crane? No, I don't think these are not automated cranes. I don't believe in the Port of Long Beach. So I don't think you're getting automated cranes at this terminal. So you have one crane that's over that stack right now. As I said before, I don't think that crane could move because there's containers, it looks like, leaning against the ship-to-shore crane. I'm not sure if they move the other cranes out of the area, so we don't know how many cranes were actually working this vessel. They probably moved them forward and aft here out of the way, worried about any other potential collapse. Let's see. Most connexes are made in China. Nearly all containers are made in China today. So that's accurate assessment there. See, going on, looks like something rocked the boat. Maybe the midship collapse related to crane work and that caused the aft containers to fall. Not clear. If you did have a shift of the vessel, maybe that caused it. But ships tend not to move tremendously very quickly when they're up against the dock. Ship is tied to the dock. You're moving containers, 5,500 TEU vessel, moving 2 FEUs at a time. You don't get a lot of motion very quickly into the vessel. I think, as you said, once the collapse happened, that created the movement in the vessel. Let's see, what was the name of the movie with Robert Redford? I forget, but that was the one where he hits it with a sailboat. I do remember it. So, Sal, how do these two separate stacks collapse if the initial collapse is not physically touching a joinery rope? Again, I think it is a movement. I think when that first stack collapsed, it created enough of a movement that you had enough movement to shift cargo in potentially those other containers, and you had that second collapse take place. This is from the Forbidden Man. Hi, Sal. What do you reckon that the containers may have been stacked wrongly in China if at light at the bottom and not heavy at the top? I agree. Typically, what you will see in a container ship like this is empty and light containers up top. You want your light containers up on top. You don't want to put you want to put your heavies down low on the stacks and toward the center if you can. The problem is that container weight is not always accurately reported. And so you take for granted sometimes, even though container cranes can measure and weigh containers as they lift them up, that information is not always updated and translated to the ship. And when you're loading in China, particularly when you're loading in Yantian, which is an automated port, it's speed. It is fast. Do they want to sit there and go back and sit there and say, wait a minute, this container is weighted differently than it's reported? Should we take a minute and reshuffle? Because you got to reshuffle everything then. And more than likely, they just went ahead with it if they even at all checked it. Does NTSB get involved? Yes, NTSB will now get involved in this. So we're going to see NTSB play a role in this without a doubt. Let's see, moving on here. Let's see. Checking out here. Make sure we're still streaming. Sorry, just making sure that my live feed is still working here. Yep, still going. What was it? Let's see, moving on. All right. So anyway, going back to the video here, because we're going to lose this video here in just a few minutes. You can see them, man, that's a big haul here for a rib boat, but they're doing everything they can, the local police in the area, to get these containers under control. That is a big, big move right there for them to do. Let's see what we got here. Let's go to live chat here. There we go. Sorry, I had myself tapped onto my other element here. Now I think we're good. So I'm going to jump ahead here a little bit on our notes, see if anybody's got questions here real quick. Were they actively taking containers off the ship? Could a crane have caused it? They were. I would bet they were taking containers off the ship. They were obviously working her. She came in this morning, planning to offload. You can see Zim containers all stacked up behind them. So I would assume they were working this vessel. I don't have the exact detail, although some of the viewers said that the lashers got on board the ship. Those are the ones that throw off the container lashers at 6 o'clock this morning, their time, and started working. NTSB will be involved, so we'll get them on board here. Derek, ITS does not have any automation. Even the automated terminals have drivers in the STS. So all the STS cranes, the ship-to-shore cranes, have crews on it. Thank you, Derek. I appreciate that, buddy. Let's see, going on here. Let's see. Vessel renamed to MV Jenga. Tom Fox with the award there for one of the best comments. John Kingery with a 182Q KFTW with a great one. We regret to inform you your Temu packages were lost, sunk during shipping. Can we track the ship's path? Yeah, let's go. Let's take a look at path of the vessel here. So those of you who don't know, this is Marine Traffic. It's a great app. I'm fortunate that Marine Traffic allows me to basically use this app. Let's see if we can get some. Let's see, I don't think I could track. Now, I can't get the weather to track it as it goes across. But one of the things I can do is check it at different times on its voyage here. So let's see. Let's go back here for a second. Sorry, get away from the weather here for a second. Let's go ahead and reset everything. Take the weather off. Get back in here into Long Beach. Oh, sorry, I got to get back into that. What's wrong there in a second? Sure, well, we're not having vessels show here. There we go. Should bring all our vessels back up. Sorry, for some reason, Marine Traffic decided to stop working there for a second. See if we can get everybody. There we go. So let's see if we pull Mississippi back up here, pull its route, see what kind of weather it encountered coming across. Yeah, we don't get a weather here. I'll have to pull back in and see, but that's a good question whether or not the vessel encountered rough in its crossing coming across. Yeah, this is going to be more than a 2-day port visit. I think we're going to be able to do it. So really do you a quick recap here as this video runs down. So motor vessel Mississippi into the port of Long Beach, port side 2, the vessel made its voyage across from Yantian, China, when the ship suffered a pair of container stack collapses. Now, we don't know which one collapsed first. You'll see here on the aft side of the vessel, the aft stack collapsed. So those containers spilled off the starboard side of the vessel. But then there's an unrelated, unconnected container stack collapse just forward of the house. That stack collapse fell on board this vessel. This is a emissions capture vessel that they use in the port of Long Beach. That long green pipe there goes into the stack and captures the emissions because the ship's ship service diesel generators are always running. So they're capturing the gases. But this is the one I would envision probably was the one that caused the collapse, just because, number one, this stack is leaning against the ship-to-shore crane. The ship-to-shore crane has not moved, and this collapse took place onto the barge that is alongside. I would envision that if they started having a stack collapse, they would have unhooked the barge and gotten it out away from the vessel. But as you see here, that barge is on, the containers are falling upon that barge. Now, according to ABC7, who this feed is from, no one was injured at this time. The containers have been largely corralled by the harbor crews here, and great work by the Long Beach Fire Department. That's Long Beach Fireboat number 15. It is using its water jets. This boat has water jets mounted around the side of the vessel so it can spray against the hull of ships. It is using that jet wash from those water jets to basically herd those containers in. This is a great image here. Notice how the cap here is broken off the vessel. I wonder if that happened when the barge hit. Here's a great view. This is the one I've been waiting for. So the port side containers did bulge out. You see them up here, up against that ship-to-shore crane. This is the ITS terminal, as you see there. Those containers are leaning against that ship-to-shore crane. So you can't move that crane for fear those containers will collapse. So that's going to be a little bit of a logistics issue here to get those containers off that crane without them causing a larger collapse onto the dock there. Man, it's going to be a little bit of work to figure out how to do that and remove those containers. That's a weird spill off the, this is where the helicopter will now leave. So, oh, not yet. I don't want to end that yet. I want to end the share. So let me end my share here for a minute here with, there we go. So that's the end of that video. I'll put a link to that video in the show notes so you can go ahead and take a look at it. That's going to be an interesting salvage operation. Obviously, the berth at ITS will be closed. They're not going to be able to move that ship very quickly. They're going to have to deal with containers in the water and leaning up against that ship to shore crane. KTLA is live now with that. I just got a note here from I Am Your Problem. Thank you, I Am Your Problem. You're not my problem today. You're doing great. So if you want, head over to KTLA. They are the Long Beach or the LA affiliates down there. I'm sure they're going to be covering this in a lot of detail. So I'll come back with more information, probably with a video entirely that will cover this. So I appreciate the 1,600 people who joined me for a half hour, me just rambling, talking about this. So if you do have questions, I'll post this up on my channel, What's Going On with Shipping. If those of you who don't follow What's Going On with Shipping, I cover ocean shipping around the world. This was a little bit of a live one because of what was just happening here in Long Beach. So that's it for me. I will sign off now. Hey, if you can, subscribe, like the channel, so you get more information. Until our next episode or next container collapse, this is Sal, signing off.